Hi everyone, it's Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. Um, as many of you know, this is my story of my life history of trauma and trauma recovery, and it's coming from two perspectives, one as the trauma survivor and one as the mental health professional who is an expert on trauma. And it thrills me to be able to make these videos and to offer concepts and understandings that would help people to live increasingly towards a life that they love to live, to be free of the constraints of their trauma and to be able to fully engage in life the way that they always wanted it to be, in the way that they imagined that it could be. And so today's topic is going to be covering a couple of different things, but as always with trauma, we need to have a grounding tool, as I have in my hand a little holy stone that helps me connect my brain to my body so that I fully understand while I'm speaking that I am safe and that I do not need to um, uh, allow myself to go into any form of autonomic nervous system response to trauma. Many of us, our systems have done it so frequently that they can do it without our awareness at all. And I'm not saying that it's a conscious choice to have an autonomic nervous system response to trauma. It's not a conscious choice. That's why it's called autonomic. But when we learn about it and become more aware of it, that gives us the tool that we need to be able to interrupt it. And so we can't always prevent triggers, but we can be so compassionate to ourselves and give ourselves the most excellent self-care at the very beginning, at the first feelings of it, which mitigates it going into a full-on response. And that's just a kindness that we can do to ourselves if we take a little bit of time to learn about how to do it. So there's all kinds of resources on the internet about how to help you to avoid going into an autonomic fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So I wanted to speak a little bit with you today about a couple of my favorite topics, and one of them, as I often do, is just a book recommendation, because if I'm reading a fantastic book, it's going to show up in my videos, because there's no point in me reading a book and keeping the information to myself if it has been life-changing information for myself. If it helps me to have even just the smallest amount of recovery for trauma, and to help me to have a day where I get out of bed and I feel good and I love being alive and I'm delighted to be doing the things that I do. If there's any book that's out there in the world after I've read it that helps me to continue to feel that way, I want to share it with my viewers. So you may have seen me hold this one up already, but of course the camera shows it in reverse, but I Am Enough. Okay, this is the book by Marissa Peer that's entitled I Am Enough. Subtitle is Mark Your Mirror and Change Your Life. And that is not, how do I say it? It's an understatement how powerful that is, to mark your mirror and change your life. Well, I don't own a single lipstick that I can write on my mirror with. I chose to use Post-it notes, but my Post-it notes are up on my mirrors, and they say things such as, your brilliant mind is able to help you to learn, and you are enough. Another one says, you are absolutely worthy of love and you are enough. Anything that I say in one of these Post-it notes always is followed with, and you are enough. And the reason that Marissa Peer, in this wonderful book that she has written, the reason that she started this initiative in 2018 and wrote and released this book in 2018, the reason for that is because she was finding as a hypnotherapist that the greatest number of people that were coming to her for hypnosis services coming to her for treatment, and to many, many, many of her worldwide students for to become hypnotherapists, is that they were recognizing, she was recognizing that that was an underlying belief that was at the root of so many of the problems. And what she has said continuously over the years is that many of the people who come to her believing that they have a certain problem, such as insomnia, that's the presenting problem, but way underneath it might be the belief that they're not enough. And so a lot of times, like I'll use myself as an example. It's the only case study that I can use safely, is my own, without breaking HIPAA. But in 1997, I began to go to counseling, mental health counseling, and I was seeing a psychiatrist because I was depressed. I got diagnosed with depression. But nobody asked me anything about what would be the root cause of the depression. They just decided that I have a condition. It's called depression, and you give it this medication, and that's it. And then you go talk to somebody to tell them how you're feeling, because talk therapy could be helpful. It might help to mitigate some of your symptoms, to have someone that is safe to talk to. But I went through that treatment for years with it not getting better. And it really didn't get any worse for quite a long time, but it didn't get better. And it's because we were treating a symptom. We were not treating the root cause of my issue. But what was at the very bottom, if you could take it like a bucket of sap from a maple tree and boil it down exactly the way they make maple syrup, if you were going to just boil off everything except for the sugary content that's left after that process, what would you be left with instead of maple syrup? You would be what would be left is Lin's belief that she is not enough. And how did she get that way? Because society and family connections, programming in school, programming in the home life, programming out in the world, programming from friends, people who were not friends but were living close by, that were the kids that we played with. Well, the kids next door were fantastic kids. I never had a problem with any of them being cruel to me. But when new kids moved into the neighborhood, absolutely that became an issue. And the age that I was right around, 11 years old, 11, 12 years old, right around puberty beginning. And at that time, being given the message over and over and over and over and over again, there's something wrong with you. You're just not good enough. And all the years that I was in in my videos, in the early videos that I made on YouTube, you will see that I'm giving my trauma history from just before I was born all the way up to present day. And what's happening in that story is I'm a bullied child at school. I'm being told I'm not enough. I had elementary school teachers who told me, you're just not smart enough. You'll never be able to understand math. If you're so thick-headed that you can't understand this, you will never understand any math. Mathematics is just where your brain didn't develop, and you're never going to have any math skills. I got sent to reading classes because they said that I had somehow not developed an ability to read. No, the problem was that I was unable to read out loud when called on because I was so terrified of being bullied more. It wasn't a reading problem. It was a belief that I was just not enough. I was never ever going to be able to get through a moment of reading a paragraph out loud to my class because I knew that it would come with some sort of ridicule and humiliation, either from students or from the teacher. And so this I am not enough concept that we have, many of us have it, and it could be at the root of depression and anxiety. It could be the underlying belief that is the fuel to keep those things going. Well, once we begin to change our belief, and it takes a while to turn it, and there's certain things that it explains in this book. It's brilliant. This book is brilliant at explaining to you how you make the beginning tiny changes that will bring you the lasting changes, because when we change our beliefs, our deepest, innermost beliefs about ourselves, then our behavior changes and our thought patterns change. The words that we say to ourselves on the inside will change drastically. And then once we begin to let go of the concept that we are not enough, then we begin to have that connection to other people and to our environment and to our world and to our community. And we begin to think, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at what I do. Or a person might begin to think, um, I I have the confidence to go into a store and bring my receipt and this item that I bought that is not working, and it should have been working as soon as I took it out of the packaging, but it doesn't. And I'm going in and I'm asking for them to refund me. And there are some of us who, before understanding that we're enough, we might have struggled with just a simple return at a customer service desk in a store. One of my children had what we refer to as shyness, and could not go in around, fourth or fifth grade, could not go up to a clerk at a 7-Eleven and purchase a little package of gum. My child would whisper in my ear and hand me back the money that I gave them, and whisper, "Could you do it? I can't." And then they would walk out of the store and wait on the sidewalk out front for me, because it was just too much for their system to be able to do that. And now, after understanding the concept of I am not enoughness, is literally what practitioners call it. It's our enoughness. And if I'm really, really low on the belief in my enoughness, if I'm a child, that's what it could look like. And in the American lexicon, we just, oh, my child is shy. My child doesn't like to talk to people they don't know. Or my child really struggles with speaking to state what they want to somebody that's older, an adult, and they might be afraid to do that for whatever reason. They might have, we might think, oh, they might have gotten harsh corrections in school or something like that that made them afraid to interact verbally with adults out in public. But truly, deep down inside, each individual, when does the I am not enoughness start? It starts in our childhood. And Marissa Peer, in her book, I Am Enough, Mark Your Mirror and Change Your Life, she's explaining that we come into the world as babies, and you never see a baby go, oh, stop looking at me, you're making me so self-conscious. Even though they can't say those words, an infant can't. They completely engage with us without self-consciousness. Self-consciousness does not develop until a later stage. And so we come into the world believing we absolutely are enough. We don't question that when we're that small. We just don't. We just know that somebody's going to pick us up, and somebody's going to love us, and somebody's going to feed us, and somebody's going to meet our needs. And yes, there are the sad circumstances and situations where, obviously, of course, there are people who come into the world where those needs are not met. That's absolutely true. But our belief when we're born is that somebody will. And then when we have the experience that somebody doesn't meet our needs, then we believe, then that's the root of beginning to have the beliefs that we're not enough. Because if I was enough, somebody would have come when I was crying. Somebody would have opened the door, come in, picked me up. They would have, changed my diaper. They would have bathed me. They would have fed me. They would have played with me. They would have sang to me. They would have read to me. They would have held me and told me that I was special and lovable, and that I was, someone worth connecting to. But we arrived on the planet with the belief that we're enough. and then those things that happened. Now, so much of what happened to us happened before we were at the age where we could consciously store memory, meaning we could pull up memories of what experiences we had. The first little bit of our life, we don't have, most of us, there are exceptions to that. There are people who can remember when they were 6 months old or 1 month old consciously, but greatest majority of us can't. And so we might not have conscious awareness of what happened that caused us to finally, gradually adopt the belief, a really deeply rooted belief that we're not enough. But there is something that we can do to change it. And so if you are able to, if you feel that I am not enoughness is at the root of some of the difficulties that you're having, related to trauma, with related to mood disorders or things like that, it is so worth it to pick up a copy of this book. Just order yourself a copy. It's easy to get. Now, there is a website on the back. It's www.iamenough.com. And I am a little bit sad that when I went, I couldn't wait to go to that web address, and it's no longer reachable. But it doesn't change the fact that the book exists. And I haven't checked, but I have a very strong feeling that there are Facebook groups that you can join that are about I Am Enough. And so the I Am Enough initiative is just something I wanted to share with you, because if you have not heard of it, such a simple thing to do. It's such a small investment. Your library might even have a copy of the book. If you don't want to purchase it, you can call the library in your local area and ask them if they can order the book from another library in your county, have it brought there for you. They'll notify you when it's there, and you just go pick it up and enjoy the book and then send it back to them. So that was just one of the topics for today. And then the other thing that I wanted to share with you is a story of something that happened recently. And one of my topics that I talk about frequently on my channel is when we bump up against people in the world who traumatize us. And not all trauma has to be big T trauma. There's little t trauma, which means small cumulative traumatic events. And we don't necessarily get knocked down by them, but it's almost like the way hearing loss is cumulative. The way, I'm sorry to say it, but concussions are cumulative. So if we've had multiple concussions, it's not a good thing, because the more of them that we have, the more likely we are to have complications at the time in our life when we begin to age and show signs later in life of possible dementia. So similar to that is our trauma, which little t trauma, the small traumatic events that we might not even read as trauma, they do build up and collect, for lack of a better word. They're cumulative. And so unless we heal them, they still remain in the body. Well, as many of you who watch my channel have heard me speak about, leading up to and then immediately after a recent trip that I took to Connecticut, I needed to prepare for that trip for, actually it took a couple months for me to prepare for it, because I have an older car. It's a 2013, and I needed to get my car made so that anything that was giving me concerns about its dependability could be resolved before I take it for a 1,000-mile trip. And so in November, actually it was late October this year, or 2024, I started making the appointments to get my car checked out, because I had to have my car inspected at that time. And when they told me the previous year that my car passed inspection because Surprisingly, in New York State, you're not required to have airbags working in your car in order for it to pass inspection. Other states might have that, but New York does not. So my car passed inspection, but they said you're going to need tires. And we would not wait until spring to do that. We think it's a real good idea for you to do that ASAP because they just barely passed. But they're not going to be good until next fall. No way. So I figured, well, why not do it before the winter, because then it'll make winter driving easy and safer, but also because I'm going on a trip far from home and I do not want to be somewhere out on a thruway and have a blown tire or get in an accident because, skidding because of low tread. So when I found out that my airbags were not working, and I asked how much, could you give me an estimate of what it would cost to get that repaired? I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. They told me that it would be between $1,500 and $2,000 to get that repaired. And I said, well, I'm just going to have to save up for it because I just can't right now. And so they're like, well, whatever. So I love the dealership that I go to get my car taken care of, because the dealership that I go to is where the car was originally purchased. And so anyway, and they've always taken excellent care of anything that I ask for there. They've always been very accommodating and wonderful about it. So when I go in there to get an oil change, and I had to get an oil change before the trip, I asked them, could you please top off and check my tire pressures and all of my fluids? Just please check everything. And that's what they do that. They always include that, and it's fantastic. Well, there were a couple other things. Like I started to notice in the fall that I had like a burning smell coming from under the hood of my car. And every time I pulled in the garage or anytime I parked in a parking spot and got out of the car, I could smell that burning smell. And so I went and I had them check it. And they said, oh, we found what it is. And this part that was needing replacing, they took care of it. And then a couple days went by. I'm like, no, the burning smell is still there. And I had to go back. And they're like, well, it might be the solenoid that needs to be replaced now, so we're going to replace that for you. And I said, okay. And that was fairly expensive, but they did it. And then I said, I'm going a long ways from home, and the next thing I need to take care of in November to prepare for this, because I'm going in the midwinter, I'm trying to get all of these things taken care of. So the next thing on the list was my heater core for my car. And again, that was an expensive one. That's about $2,000 to get that changed out. But they did it. And after it was done, I got my car back and I'm like, everything's great, but I'm still getting the burning smell. And so there was, back and forth and back and forth. And then in January, just days before I went on the trip, I finally got the burning smell resolved. But I kept on getting, after they fixed that, I forget what part that they put in there. I'm sorry, I don't have the receipt in front of me, but they had to do, it was some other little thing. Can't remember. But it was taken care of. And then the day after, I went to start my car and my check engine light comes on. And there's this thing called StabiliTrak, and it has a little picture of a car on, and one of the lights, one of the what do you call them? Like a warning light on the dash. And it's like the swervy tire marks with the little car, which means your anti skid and slide stuff is engaging. But I was driving on dry pavement, and I had been to the dealership 6 times in 6 weeks to get these things all taken care of. And I think they were getting a little bit tired of me coming in and saying, thank you so much, that's great, but I'm still getting the same problem in my car, and I need somebody to look at it and figure out what is causing something to be, producing a burning smell, because that's an indicator something isn't working right and it needs to be resolved, because it can't go this far from home and have a breakdown. if it can be at all avoided. So after they had worked on my car, and the very next day I started it, and I had a check engine light and the indicator telling me that the StabiliTrak was engaging on dry pavement. It was not snowy, it wasn't icy, it was dry roads. And all of a sudden, but when that engaged and I accelerated my car, it wouldn't go any faster than 20 to 30 miles an hour, but it's just like choking and lurching and everything when that's happening. So I went back and I walked into the place and I said, this is what's happening. I called first. I made the appointment. They said, bring it back tomorrow. And now we're down to just days before my departure day, which was going to be on the 17th of January, which was a Friday. So I brought it over on Tuesday. And when I walked in the morning, one of the people at the desk said, hey, how are you doing today? And I said, well, actually, I feel like, because it's Western New York in January, I feel like I'm never going to be warm again. I just feel like I am constantly cold. And it's just one of the like chit chat things that people will talk about this time of year in upstate New York. But I wasn't there I had already had the heater core of my car replaced the previous week. And I was not complaining about my heat not working in my car. I was there to say, and I called ahead day before and said, thank you so much for fixing my car, but now I don't know if they tripped a sensor while they were working on it, but it needs to be seen again because they might have to replace a fuse, or they might have to just put a tool that they use that checks which sensors are going off and do a reset. But we can't do that for ourselves at home. It has to be done by a mechanic. So they said, all right, well, bring it in. So I brought it in, and then we had that discussion. I was there at 7:30 in the morning to drop it off, and I was going to get a shuttle back home because they said you're probably going to have to leave it for the day. And so when you check the car in at the desk at a service department at a dealership, they already know what you called ahead because they put it into the computer system what the car is being brought in for. But the person who asked me, how you doing today? And I said, I'm good, but I feel like I'm never going to be cold. I'm never going to be warm again. It was just being just kind of lighthearted joke. She put the work order in for me as my, the customer is complaining about the car not heating up. That is not what happened. I did not complain that my car is not heating up. I was complaining that Lynn is not heating up because it's winter. But that's what happened. So there was confusion, but I didn't know that. And I got sent home, with the shuttle. They drove me back to my house. And when they called me up that day, they said, your car's all set. You can come pick it up. And we already called for the shuttle to come get you. And I said, okay. So shuttle picked me up, took me back to the dealership, and they said that they had to reset some sensor on it, and they replaced some little thing, and it was on the receipt, and it was an inexpensive fix, and it was about $140. Some of you might say, well, that's not expensive, but the repairs that I was doing multiple repairs that were well over $1,000 each. One was over $2,000, and all of this within a 6-week time period. So I thought everything was all set, that they had taken care of that sensor where my car was, chugging and lurching and having a check engine light and the StabiliTrak light on. But when I got in my car to drive home, it was still happening. I had just paid for that to be fixed, and it was still happening. And now is the point where I'm just starting to I'm over it. My departure is at the end of the week, and I'm now thinking I might have to just scrap the whole idea of taking my car. I might have to rent a car. Well, what happened next was I realized I've got to go back into that dealership and I have to tell them that this is not satisfactory. And I just paid $140 some for my car to be fixed of this problem, and the problem is still there. It is not gone. And I knew that I can't go up to the desk in there and complain about it to the people who check you in and check you out, the people who, take your credit card and you pay for it and they hand your keys back to you. I knew that it was not going to be resolved by going to the desk and speaking to those people, that this was now a problem where I would need to speak to a manager. So I didn't park where the service bay areas are, where you come into the service area. I parked out front and walked in and asked the first person at a desk that I saw, who would the manager of this dealership be, and are they on the premises right now, because I would really love to speak to them if it's possible. And they said, well, yeah, they're here. I can go get them for you. And I said, well, I appreciate that so much. And he said, may I ask what it's about? And I said, it's about a service that was done to my car. And he said, okay. And he came back out and said, manager is in a phone call and it's going to take a while, so he wants to know if we could have you talk to a guy he's actually manager for the sales floor. He's not manager of the whole place, but he does manage the sales floor, but he's confident he can help you. And I said, okay, that would be fine. So he asked me what's wrong, and I told him, I said, this is going to take a couple minutes for you to be able to understand. He said, that's okay. Say whatever you got to say. So I told him about the, the repair and the repair. And I said, I've got my receipts for all of this stuff, and I don't go anywhere else to have my car looked at. I've been coming here for, as long as I've had the car. And I'm just really puzzled about how I could pay for something as serious as having my car not be able to go more than 20 miles an hour. And it's even at 20 miles an hour, it's just jerking and choking, and it's just not running right. And the check engine light's on, and I cannot drive my car in the condition that it's in because it could actually wreck my transmission. I'm very concerned about that. And he said, that's absolutely right. So I said, I am leaving day after tomorrow on a 1,000-mile trip. And I've been coming here. I've been here 6 weeks. I've been coming here for 6 weeks. And I've also had, in that 6-week time frame, I've had 6 appointments. And my car is not ready to make this trip. No matter what I've been doing to get it ready, it's not ready. And I might have to rent a car now, which could cost me close to $1,000. I have no idea what it's going to cost me, but it could be as high as that. And I said, for a weekend trip, I don't know if it's more or if it's less, or I don't know. But I just need to know right now, should I just go up the road and scrap the whole idea of taking my car? Or do I have to go rent a car because my car is still not going to be drivable for this? And he said, what time are you leaving on Friday? And I told him, I'm supposed to be wheels rolling no later than 8 a.m. And this day is Wednesday. And what he said to me was, I'm going to call, he asked the guy that I spoke to when I first came in the door. He said, could you go up front and get this person? He said their name. That's the person who checked me in that I had said to, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be warm again. He said, bring them back here. I'd like to speak to them. And he said, okay. And that person came back, not by themselves. They brought somebody with them. And I had my receipt on the counter. And he said, could you please explain to me how she could come here and have her car fixed and pay this amount of money that's shown on the receipt to get this problem that's on the paperwork here fixed? It says right here what she brought it in for. How could it say at the bottom of it that we couldn't find a heating issue? And this is the part that I forgot to tell you, and it's really important to this story. I have never in my life had a person, when I go to pick up my car, look at me and say, oh, we're glad you're here. I got something for you. And I said, you do? What is it? and the person took a photograph. It's a photograph on a piece of like computer printer paper. It takes up the whole rectangle of the paper, and it's a thermometer on the heat vent showing that my temperature gauge is reaching 160 in my car, and that it's ridiculous. This person told me it's ridiculous for you to bring your car back when all that was wrong, sweetie, is that you had accidentally put your air conditioning on. And that's how come your car wasn't warming up when you drive it. Because guess what? In Western New York, if you're going to drive in the winter, you probably shouldn't have your air conditioning on if you want to be warm. That's exactly how this individual spoke to me. And I said, well, that's all very nice, but I came here because my check engine light was on and my car was engaging in the braking system that's automatic for when you're driving on icy conditions. And I was driving on dry pavement, and my car won't accelerate properly. And that's why I was here. And that's exactly how I got, put into the system. My car got put into the system as that was the owner's complaint. I wasn't here because the climate control in my car wasn't working right. And he said, yeah, but you brought your car in on a winter day complaining that you're cold while you had the air conditioning on. And I'm explaining to this manager, I have never in my life had my car picked up at any place for repair and have somebody go out of their way, even with a photograph. He's, slid it right at me and said, there, right there's your problem. You had your air conditioning on, and humiliating me and shaming me and trying to make me feel absolutely inadequate and stupid for daring to inconvenience their staff and their technicians and their mechanics for just such a ridiculous display of idiocy. And therefore, no, we did not fix any problem in your car, because if you had just pressed the button to turn off your air conditioning, you wouldn't have been cold. And the manager's face was changing while I'm telling this story. He said, this photograph that you have right here, which person on our staff pushed that across the counter at you and said those words to you? And I said who it was. And so he asked the person standing next to me, did you see that? And the only thing that person had to say was, well, that person's a little bit rough around the edges sometimes. We've all known that for years. And my response was, you can call it rough around the edges. I'm referring to it as what it is. It's misogyny. I was trying to pretend that I wasn't being spoken to a certain way whenever I got my bill paid with this person. But it's been building and getting worse, and the tone's been getting more disrespectful, and the honey and sweetie stuff has been going on for the entire time. But I overlooked it because some people just talk to you that way, and I just try not to make it a big deal. I said, but when it came with a photograph being pushed at me and the condescending tone and letting me know that I inconvenienced the staff with bringing my car there and asking them to check a problem that there was a major miscommunication about, or so I thought. I thought that it was just a miscommunication. But the manager said, she has to be on the road on Friday morning. That leaves us one day to fix this problem. And he said, I want you to put her on to the person he had called up, but that also brought a person with them from their department that was not summoned. But safety in numbers is what it looked like to me, and wanted to have a witness. So the person was told, you will put her on the schedule for first thing tomorrow morning. He said, what time can you be here? And that the service department staff person said, no, we are not adding her to the schedule for tomorrow. We are booked up solid for tomorrow, and we cannot take this car in one more time. We cannot do that. She can bring it in after her trip, but she's not going to be able to drive the car for her trip. She's going to have to rent a car, and we are not putting her on the schedule for tomorrow. She can bring it after the trip, but we're booked for tomorrow, and there's nothing we can do about that. And the manager said, I don't care if you have to get somebody from a different dealership to come here and work on this car tomorrow. We are getting this car fixed at this location tomorrow, and she will be able to drive this car on her trip. That person pushed back again and said, it's not possible. It will not happen. I will not put her on the schedule for tomorrow. So the manager looked at me and said, bring your car here 7:30 tomorrow morning. We will have it back to you by the end of the day, and your car will be drivable for your trip. I guarantee it. And I said, okay, thank you very much. That's fantastic. So I did have to drive it a couple miles back to my house. And I was hoping that it wasn't going to damage anything too bad. And that person who was standing there that had said no a couple of times, no, you're not getting your car fixed by us tomorrow, was absolutely livid that they got overruled by management and said nothing to me when I walked out with my receipt and my photograph, my humiliation photograph that was given to me by a different staff person. And so dropped my car off, got shuttled back to my home. It was icy when I walked in the next morning, and that very same person was the person who had to check me in. There was nobody else at that hour. I had to go to their cubicle and get checked in. And you could just feel the tension. It was not pleasant. But I went home, and the manager did ask that person the day before, how long will it take to fix the car? And they said 4 hours. And we don't have 4 hours, but it ended up being mandatory that they put me on the schedule. So when I dropped off at 7:30, I figured it's probably going to be no later than 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because they're not going to get to it immediately, but most likely by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, my car should be done. And what happened was I didn't get a phone call like I normally get. I got a text message, and it was from that individual who had checked my car in that I had been having this incident with. And well, there were 2 people involved in the incident, but the one who had refused to have my car brought in was the person that normally would call me and say, hey, you're all set. Should I have the shuttle come and pick you up? Normally it's yes, that'd be great, thank you. But I got this text message. Your car is done. I already called for a shuttle for you. And we were right in the middle of a really big, excuse me please, a big snowstorm. We had a couple days of snowstorm going on, but at the time when I was driving it and finding out what it was doing, the roads were dry. By the time it was time to go back for service, we were having more storm, but it didn't last all day. But anyways, it was going full blast in the late afternoon, and when I got to the dealership, it was 5:15. That person went home at 5 o'clock, and the very last thing they did before they left, it appeared to me, was to say, your car is ready. You can have it back. The shuttle is on its way. Well, when I got there was almost a foot of snow on my car. My car had been done for hours. And this person waited until their shift ended and made it so that I would have to be shuttled back at the time when the dealership is basically shutting down. There's only one person left in the service area where you either check in or pick up, drop off or pick up and pay your bill. There was just one person in there, and it was a person that was not involved in this whole situation at all. And after they charged me for my repair, which was hundreds of dollars, they said, I'd be so happy to pull your car up and brush it off for you. And I knew right away something was up. I saw how heavily snowed on my car had been. My first thought was, it did not just get brought out of the bay at 5 o'clock. It's been sitting out there for hours, and that person did not want me to know that. And they didn't want to deal with me again. So they made sure that they were leaving before I could come back in the building. So I said, no, thank you. I'm quite good at brushing off my car. I can do it myself. Thank you very much for your kind offer. And the car was properly fixed immediately. As soon as I drove it, I knew that the problem is finally resolved. It was running smoothly. The check engine light was off. The other indicator light was off. And it was driving exactly as it should. And I was greatly relieved about that because it's the day before I leave, so my evening is already planned. It's packing and getting everything into the car. But there were two things for my trip, actually three things for my trip that I absolutely could not leave without. And I put them in days before into my trunk. And what they were was a really, really nice, high quality, good pair of ski gloves that I've had for years. I'm really prone to losing gloves, so I don't know how I hung on to both of them for all these years, but I've had them for about 15 to 20 years. And they're my warmest gloves, and I put them in the trunk, and right next to them, I put a really nice insulated pair of boots. And the third thing that I had in there that I could not be on this trip without was a really super great quality snow brush. So I have a chintzy little snow brush that's on the floor in the back seat of my car, but I had the kind that you need for a blizzard or an ice storm put into the trunk. So those items were set right there. As soon as you open the trunk, they're just right there. And I knew that I could not forget them. I couldn't leave them behind in the garage. I couldn't set them down anywhere in the house and forget these things. They're in there. So if I get in the car and I put all of my things in the night before, I know I can't leave without some of my most important things. Well, the next morning after I picked up my car, after that whole incident is now resolved, and I'm putting the last of my things, in. Some things were inside the car on the back seat. Some things were on the front seat and on the floor in the front. Not a ton of stuff, but some things were there. And I had one bag that needed to go in the trunk. And when I opened the trunk and lifted it up and I went to put the bag in, the first thing that I noticed made it so I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it was that I now had no snow brush, the fancy snow brush, the super long telescoping, really cool scraper on it snow brush is gone. And I have one boot and one glove. And I knew immediately what had happened. Having my car have, a half a foot of snow on it and wait until the dealership is essentially shutting down. I think they were open till 7, but most of their staff goes home at 5. And I think that because that person got kind of dressed down by a supervisor in front of a customer, and they were angry about it, they decided to give me some pushback. And I just thought, you know what, my wonderful glove and my not super inexpensive made in USA boot are most likely in a dumpster out behind the dealership, or they might have been thrown in the back of the bed of a truck somewhere. Might have been chucked across the parking lot. I don't know. But I'm never going to see them again. And it was just the most childish, conscienceless thing that they could do in the moment. Why am I speaking about it? Because I'm a trauma coach and I speak to my clients and to my viewers about when we bump up against in the world. We're bumping up against people who have low conscience, low empathy, and low remorse, or a total absence of all three. And I could never, if somebody came to me in any capacity that I was working, any of the jobs that I've ever had, if somebody was displeased with me at my job for anything, I can tell you, yeah, when I was really young, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I might have been a jerk enough at that time and immature enough at that time to, in my head, picture doing something really awful. I mean, just like saying something nasty or, um, telling them don't ever come through my cashier line again. If you come in, don't come to my register because I don't want to ever cash you out again, or some stupid thing like that. I did a video about a girl who I couldn't give her an excellent evaluation for the weeks that I worked with her training her as a nurse assistant in a nursing home back in the 1980s. And when I had to give a very honest assessment for her performance, which was dismal and awful and would have been unsafe for the patients, my recommendation was for these reasons listed here, all the checklists on the evaluation is it will not go well if you hire this person. I recommend that you don't, because she couldn't take direction, and she was completely inappropriate towards patients and me and other staff. And I gave examples and I was very clear about it. But when that person got a no, they were told, no, you will not be working here. They held me personally responsible, and a couple days later came and completely vandalized my car. This is the same kind of behavior. A person who couldn't get their way when they said, no, we're not taking on another car tomorrow. We're already booked. We don't have room to do one more 4-hour job. We're not doing it. And when they got told, yes, you are, find a way, even if you have to call other dealerships for the same, you know what I mean, the same type of manufacturer car, the same, they're not going to call somebody from a Ford dealership to come and do this. It would have to be in their system of dealerships. Get somebody here. That's your job. Get somebody here tomorrow who can do it. If our staff can't, your job is get somebody here who can do it. The car will be here at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Find somebody. And that was enough to push that person to engage in acts of retaliation and vengefulness and theft. Now, what would happen if I had gone back into that dealership and said, I now need to report that somebody on your staff took my snow brush, one of my gloves, and one of my boots? They would have left me out of the place and said, you keep coming back in here. We have dealt with you over and over and over again. We're tired of how often you're bringing your car to here, and now we don't want you to be a client anymore. Bye. They have the right to do that. They can refuse service to you. If I had gone in there and said that that had happened, and I'm saying that somebody on your staff did this, and I think we both know who, if they didn't do it, they at least orchestrated it, instructed somebody else to do it. But it's not something you could really take somebody to small claims court for. It would never rise to the level of appropriateness for that, and I 100% agree. It wouldn't, and it doesn't. But it's just irritating enough to make a person understand, hey, we gave you a giant silent fuck you that you can't do anything about, and you can't get anybody to listen to you about it, because the things that if we took your purse out of your trunk, which it wasn't there, but if we had taken your purse, which was locked in your trunk at the time, then you could make a police report about that, and you can go to small claims court if there's a certain value of money that's lost, or even if the value of the purse, let's say it was a super expensive designer purse. Well, in that case you could file a claim. But the things that they took, they knew it would be just annoying enough that you would just want to lose your mind over it. But there's nothing really you could do. So again, it's a giant FU. Like, ha 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 ha, we got the last word on this one. And if you think you're ever going to come into my place of employment and have me called out on the carpet because of something that I did, you are absolutely out of your mind. It's not going to end well for you. And what does that do to a customer who now has had that experience? Can you go back to that dealership again? Can you go in there and actually say, I'm here for an oil change? Or do you now have to worry about things escalating to something else being done? Maybe something a little bit more sinister done to your car. Having something thrown in your gas tank or whatever. I don't know. I haven't made my decision about what to do. But I'm speaking about this from the trauma recovery coach point of view, which is when we deal with somebody who is low on conscience, low on empathy, and low on remorse, they show up in our lives doing things like this, and they will shove you back hard if you stand up for yourself. I went in there and I stood up for myself because I now am experiencing my enoughness. I stand up for myself in ways that I did not do for decades. But if something isn't right, I'm the person now who has changed enough. I have developed into my maturity and my adulthood and my enoughness that I can now say, well, I paid for this to be fixed and it wasn't, and now I'm simply here to ask for, could it please be fixed the right way now? Because I already paid for it to be fixed, but it wasn't fixed. So I'm at least owed that for it to be fixed, for this problem that I came in and I trusted your staff with. I thought that I could be listened to when I said what was wrong, but somebody started effing with me right from the beginning by putting the worker order in as I thought something was wrong with my just days before replaced heater core. Nope, never even said that. I never said that. I was just making a joke about how cold it is and how all of us feel like by this time of winter in Western New York and upstate New York, you just feel like I am so ready for a spring rainstorm. I'm over it already. The snow is beautiful. I wear this snowflake necklace to remind myself I can like wintertime. I might have to focus a little bit more to try to like it, but I can do it. I don't have to be in misery just because it's wintertime and there's a lot of snow and I'm cold. I can find a way to be content through this. A lot of it is done through reading and doing things like this, like making a video, working with clients, doing my schoolwork for the program that I'm in now. But I wanted to share this with you because this story has value. Because some of you are listening to it and saying, I have somebody in my family that retaliates like that. Or there's a person who works at the bank where I go. And if I come in and I ask for something and I wasn't satisfied and I come back and I have to get it made right, they hold a grudge against me and then they act like they have the right to emotionally and psychologically or verbally, punish me because I had the gall to come in and ask for what I had the right to ask for. And if we ask in an appropriate way, and there's no attitude, there's no snark, there's no dissatisfaction, there's no, verbally slamming the staff or, sidelong glances or sighing and eye rolling and this, I'm so sick and tired of coming here. When are you guys going to get this right? There was none of that. My words when I walked away after I dropped the car off was, you always take such great care of me here. I'm full of appreciation for all of you. It's literally what I said when I handed my keys over and I signed my signature on the work order. And so, no, I was not being that customer that nobody can stand. I was there because I paid for a repair. It wasn't done, and I was asking not to have a refund or for anybody to be in trouble. I just simply wanted it to be done. And the pushback was gross. So what can we do about it? Well, we can keep on practicing learning about our enoughness, because this isn't a problem just with a dealership for, and for car repairs. This is a problem of we bump up against people who also want us to believe that we're not enough, that we're the problem, that we are too much, we're too needy, we're asking for too much, we want too much. That person might have read me as bitchy and entitled, just simply for asking for the repair that I paid for already to be done correctly and to be done at all. So maybe they're struggling with either whatever they experienced in their life that caused them to become really bitter, or it might be a person who came into the world already with lack of conscience, lack of remorse, lack of empathy, and no ability to connect to those things. And so at that moment, they felt a little bit threatened and they go into damage mode. You're just going to get damaged because I can't tolerate you. And you dinged my ego at work, where I think I'm kind of a big deal. I don't get reprimands at work, and you caused one to happen to me, and that's unforgivable. And now, therefore, you must be taught a lesson. So it's one of those things you literally don't know what to do, because the damage is not in any way something that you can ask for restitution for. It's a glove, a boot, and a snow brush. And the message is absolutely loud and clear, like they're screaming it from the rooftops. Don't you ever come into my place of employment and fuck with me by expecting me to do my job. Don't ever, ever, ever do that to me, or you will pay. So right at this point, I'm kind of thinking that might have been my last visit to that dealership. Because there's coming into the service department, there is no way of getting around those two people. They're still going to be there. They aren't going to be let go over something like that. They might have got written up. I don't know if they even do that at service, places, at dealerships in the service department. I have no idea if dealerships write people up. Hospitals that I worked in a hospital and a nursing home system, and they sure do. They absolutely they have a warning system in place, and you only have a certain finite number of warnings, and then you're gone. You get let go. But some places don't work that way. Once you've got seniority, you're there until the day you retire. So, thank you for being with me today. I hope that when I tell a story about a real life experience, it's to help you connect and to help you name what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, what's being done to you, and what can I do about this whole thing? A few little things. There's no big, huge thing that I can do about it. But one of the best things that I can do about it, okay, I was mistaken. There is a huge thing I can do about it, is that I can still remind myself by reading, I am enough, mark your mirror, change your life. I can keep on reminding myself that the problem there was not me. I can walk with my head held high and know I didn't harass anybody. I didn't ask for anything that was too much. I did not make anybody intentionally feel bad. I was asking for what I paid for. And I got punished for asking. And what does that inspire me to do? It inspires me to keep going forward and remind myself. I can ground myself. I can learn about this. I can know that I was not the person who was displaying corrupt behavior in this process. I kept my side of the street clean. And I absolutely 100% know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I am enough, exactly as I am. And one last thing that I'll share with you, and I may have mentioned this in a different video, and this will only take just a brief moment. You'll see that I have on a brown shirt today. This is a brown linen shirt that I ordered from a catalog a couple years ago. And my spouse, when I was still with him, um, used to love the character, and I thought she was fantastic too. Rachel Dratch on Saturday Night Live, fantastic comedian and actress, and I just absolutely love her. And she played a character who was known as Debbie Downer, and I think it was one of her most popular characters on Saturday Night Live. And the character Debbie Downer always had on a brown shirt, or almost always had on a brown button-down shirt. And so many times when I was speaking in front of other people, and even just at home with just our kids, if I said something that my husband felt was just not something that people want to hear at a party or at a picnic or at a gathering or waiting in line to get into a movie or whatever, he would point to me and tell people, she's such a Debbie Downer. I always tell myself the next holiday or birthday, I got to remember to get her a brown shirt. I'm going to give her a brown shirt for a present because she needs a brown shirt because she's such a Debbie Downer. He would say to me, why are you talking about that? Nobody wants to hear that. This is a party. You're such a Debbie Downer. And then he would make the sound that was in like the sound effects. That was like wah wah every time Debbie Downer said something, and then she'd go like this, and like Thanksgiving dinner where she's at Thanksgiving dinner she decides to speak to everybody at the table about feline AIDS. He said, that's the kind of person you are, and everybody knows it. And I began to believe that, I mean, even more and more and more and more in my not enoughness, because I kept on being told, no, no matter what, you will always be such a downer. Nobody can stand to be near you. Why can't you be lighthearted like everybody else? Why can't you talk about things that are just fun and exciting and great? Instead, it always circles back to something that's a negative thing with you. That is not true. It was never true. But if somebody wants us to believe it, they will hammer that home again and again and again and again and again. Because what are they trying to do? Tell us that we're not enough. That's the underlying message in that. Every single bit of it was to say, in different words, this is what it would really sound like if the person was truthful. I am a totally dishonest person. And I am a master manipulator, and I've set my intention to hurt you as bad as I can with my words. And I want to publicly humiliate you in front of your friends and your family and neighbors and community people. And I'm going to keep on saying this thing about you in front of you to other people to make you absolutely 100% believe right to your very core that you're not enough. That something's faulty, bad, broken, shameful, and malfunctioning about you. And all of us are in on it, and we're all pointing our finger at you and showing you that you are just never going to be accepted. You're never going to be fully included. You're always going to be held at arm's length on the periphery. You're going to be marginalized, and that you're just going to always question, how can they all connect, but I can't connect with them? That's the goal. If a person has no conscience, no remorse, and no empathy, that is how they operate. And so we can feel it when we're in the vicinity of them. And I bumped up against one or two of them at the place where I got my car taken care of. And I thought, after it happened and my anger wore off, as I'm driving the miles to my destination last weekend, I was thinking, oh, well, you gave me more material to work with to teach people about this. So a lot of times we can just look at these people as our teachers, not teaching us to feel lousy anymore, teaching us what antisocial traits and high narcissistic traits and high borderline traits and high covert narcissistic traits and things like that look like, so that we can help other people who are experiencing it to learn the language, to see what it looks like, to hear what it sounds like, and to understand that's them, I'm me, and I would never do that garbage to anybody, and I can help other people to understand we don't have to tolerate it. We can build beautiful boundaries, and we can have our needs met somewhere else, but we don't have to go back for more of that. So right at this point, the likelihood of me going back to my favorite place, I loved going to that place. They got the nicest lounge too. They've got the nicest people driving the shuttles. Do I want to go back and have more crap taken out of my vehicle? No. Some of you could be saying, make your trunk empty before you go back. It's not about that. They can find different, you know what, in a restaurant, if you say something that the staff didn't like, one of my relatives said, I hope you like floor grease in your burger because that's what you're getting. So we have to be careful when we are choosing the hill we want to die on, when we're choosing our arguments, or we're choosing where we go back to. There's a few things to consider. And in this case, I think I might drive a few more miles to a couple towns away and go have my stuff done there. But anyways, this is a longer episode than I like to normally do, but it had some stuff in it that I really wanted to share today. And if you've made it to the end of my video, thank you so much for staying with me. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button right now and hit the like button, put comments in the comments section, put questions in, and share it on any platform that you want to. Hit the notification bell. And I appreciate so much. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. If you're a new viewer, thank you so much. I hope you feel welcomed at my channel, and I love to interact with my viewers. So anything that you put in the comments section, I love to send a message back to you. And I appreciate all of you so much. If you're interested in working with me as your certified trauma recovery coach, I would love to have a discovery call with you. You can reach me at my phone number, which is 716-994-3052. And my email is lin@linbouthillier.com, and it's spelled LIN@LINBOUTHILLIER.com. It's a weird last name. It's a French-Canadian name and actually means wine butler, but it's pronounced Bouthillier. Looks like Bouthillier. But anyways, thank you so much, everyone. I absolutely love making videos and having this time with you. And if you're looking for someone to support you and help you to understand wonderful concepts in trauma recovery and healing, please call me. I would be delighted to be your unwavering support on your trauma recovery journey. So I love you all. Have the very best day, everyone. See you next time.